This is Batshit Crazy, a podcast dedicated to all things strange and unusual, with your spirit guides Heather and Dylan, who will take you to the other side. Subject matter featured on Batshit Crazy may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
One of the reasons why this area is so dangerous is because two currents meet just offshore at Cape Hatteras. The cold, southbound waters from the Arctic, the Labrador Current, collide with the northbound warm waters of the Gulf Stream, which results in what some might describe as a violent battle in the ocean.
Well, I could imagine both those waters, different temperatures, coming from different directions. I can imagine it creates quite a bit of turbulence.
The currents do slow down just enough to leave deposits of silt, sand, and shells in an area known as Diamond Shoals, which is about 14 miles out to sea.
Yeah, and that's even worse. You're going to get built up. You're going to have issues just underneath the waterline that you can't see, especially back in the day before, modern technology.
Sonars,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
On the morning of January 31st, 1922, a lookout working at the Cape Hatteras Coast Guard Station saw a five-masted schooner appearing as if stranded on the Diamond Shoals with all the sails set. It looked as if it were intentionally run aground.
So it's kind of like finding a car with the door open and the motor running and the keys in it, and it's off in a ditch.
Yes.
It looks like somebody did this on purpose.
Exactly, Dylan. That's a great way
Thank you.
to describe it. That's a good comparison.
That's what I do.
Now, immediately, two rescue boats were dispatched to help, but they were caught in freezing swells that were running high. These rescuers were not able to make contact with anyone aboard the ship. However, through binoculars, they could make out the name of the vessel, the Carroll A. There seemed to be no crew on board, and they couldn't make out any lifeboats, which they initially thought was a good thing. The rescuers imagined maybe the crew members had tried to make it to shore already with some success.
So they want to help, but they can't get to them because the seas, and you got these choppy seas.
It's raging.
A raging ocean. And so they can see the ship, but they can't get to them to help.
Right. So it took 4 days for the seas to calm down enough to make another rescue attempt. When they did make another attempt, what the rescuers found was unsettling. Aboard the Carroll A. Deering were scattered nautical charts, but the log, chronometer, and sextant were missing. So these nautical charts were scattered all over like the captain's quarters.
And that typically would be something that is well kept up, put away very safely, because I'd say you wouldn't want to lose your charts, right?
A meal had been set out in the crew galley, but clearly had not been touched, suggesting something may have happened in the moments before they were to dine. There was no sign of a struggle, at least nothing to indicate violence, no blood or carnage left behind. The ship's anchors were missing. The steering cables were intentionally cut. The binnacle compass had been smashed with a hammer.
So I take it all these things missing, the sextant and the chronometer.
Yeah.
These are what they use to
navigate
the ship.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then all the way down to even the compass has been destroyed. Wow, so the ship's been disabled intentionally, it seems.
This would render a ship unsteerable. Exactly, Dylan. If a crew had decided to mutiny, they would have wanted to leave the ship in a functional capacity.
Yeah.
One would expect, right? There were 3 pairs of boots found in the captain's cabin, as if they had perhaps been left there, like someone had slept, like more than the captain had slept in the captain's cabin and left behind these 3 pair of boots, which is strange. The spare bed inside the captain's quarters had also been slept in. The only surviving creature aboard the ship was a tabby cat.
If only that kitty could talk.
They gathered the cat and a few other pieces of evidence, then returned to shore. These rescuers sent out word to other stations, Coast Guard stations, lighthouses, that kind of thing, to keep an eye out for crew members or lifeboats. Every part of the beach, bay, and inlet were searched for signs of the crew. Yet weeks passed with no sign of crew members or explanation about what had happened aboard the Deering. After 3 weeks, the ship began falling apart due to the force of the waves, and it was becoming a hazard for other ships trying to navigate the shoals. A decision was made to dynamite blast the ship into little pieces in order for it to wash away.
Oh, nice. So yeah, you would. They say most of the time, if you're anywhere near shore and in the water, that you're going to likely wash up somewhere. So they're searching beaches for debris, bodies, just no sign of anything.
Nothing.
A lifeboat that's been dragged up on shore, or even a broken up lifeboat that's washed up on shore, and just absolutely nothing. Now, this would be very strange, and I think it would make the people around feel quite odd about the situation.
Built in 1919, the Carroll A. Deering was the last wooden schooner created before iron took over the shipbuilding industry, and it was built by G.G. Deering Company in Bath, Maine. The ship was named after the owner's son and weighed 1,879 tons.
Wow.
It was considered luxurious for a cargo ship because it was outfitted with mahogany and oak. It had a usable lavatory on the ship and also steam heat and electricity.
Wow. So it was advanced.
By all accounts, it was a reliable ship, having made successful voyages previously. So totally seaworthy ship. The investigation continued. The Coast Guard soon learned that the Deering had been hauling coal from Newport News, Virginia to Brazil. The captain, William H. Merritt, had fallen ill, so when they arrived at a port in Delaware, he was replaced by Captain W.B. Wormel. The trip to Brazil went off without a hitch, and they stopped in Barbados to load more cargo. But for some reason, they were unable to load any cargo in Barbados, so they planned to return back to Newport News empty. And this wasn't good news because it meant the return portion of the trip was unpaid because they weren't carrying any cargo.
Oh, so the crew would be the whole trip's unpaid. Nobody's getting any money. We're not doing any work.
Well, the first half would be paid, but
Right.
the second half, would be unpaid. So they're only getting what would be, I guess, the normal salary.
Half the wages.
Half the wages.
Okay.
Exactly. While in port in Barbados, the first mate, Charles McClellan, got really drunk and was arrested the night before they were to be underway. The captain confessed to a friend he expected trouble and didn't think much of his crew. It is said that Wormel and McClellan didn't get along from Jump Street, and being in close quarters on the ship did not help. Wormel considered his first mate a drunk and didn't appreciate the way in which McClellan treated other crew members. Like, McClellan sounds like just an asshole.
Well, this is a very bad relationship on a ship because your first mate's supposed to be your number one, the person who's going to support you, give you good information to make good decisions, and, just kind of act as an intermediary. I'm assuming from having watched pirate movies and stuff, from the captain to the crew. Captain tells first mate what we want to do, what my intentions are. He relays it on down the line.
Like middle management.
Yeah, and for the fact these guys really don't like each other, and being on these seafaring vessels in this day and time was not easy. Still quite hard life, right? So I could see this not being a good situation.
The captain's friend reported that just before the ship had arrived in Barbados, McClellan had threatened the captain by saying, quote, "I'll kill you before it's over, old man."
Okay.
While he had been drinking at the Continental Cafe, which is in Barbados, McClellan was overheard saying he would kill the captain before the ship made it to Norfolk, Virginia. The handwritten log entries were made by the captain until January 23rd of 1921, and after that, an unknown hand had replaced it. So in the following week, the ship made its way up the North Carolina coast. On January 29th, the ship was last seen off the coast of Cape Fear. Then 6 days later, she was spotted at Cape Lookout by Captain Jacobson, 70 miles north. The trip should have only taken a day to get from Cape Fear up to Cape Lookout. But we've got it 6 days to take this voyage.
And these are places that are manned 24/7. They're looking for ships. They're almost directing traffic of sorts. So there's no way someone missed that ship for 4 or 5 days, right?
Right. And as the ship passed Cape Lookout, a crew member described as a redhead with a Scandinavian accent used a megaphone to inform the lightship crew that the Carroll A. Deering had lost anchors at sea during a storm. Only after she sailed on did the lightship workers realize there had been no major storm activity on the coast for weeks. They also noted the crew seemed to be hanging out on the poop deck, which was normally off limits to like the common seamen or the common sailors aboard the ship.
Okay, and now is that the elevated deck kind of up where the steering and all that is?
Yes, it would be like the fore kind of part of the ship.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily where the helm would be, because I think that's typically aft, maybe, on a schooner. I'm not exactly sure. But it would be kind of like the very front of the ship, like where, you know, Jack and Rose would be hanging out
Okay.
with like Titanic shit.
Well,
right?
would they go up there to observe and things like that and decide where they're going? So it's just not somewhere the common shipmates hanging out. They're down on the main deck or below working, doing their jobs.
Typically they would not just be hanging out up there. Now it seems suspicious. And the next time anyone would see the ship again, she was crewless and run aground. All 8 members of the crew, along with the first mate and captain, were missing. The mystery of what happened aboard the Carroll A. Deering while at sea remains unknown. Although theories have surfaced over the years, which are pretty interesting, Dylan, so let's take a look at those.
Yeah, I want to hear the theories.
Okay, the first theory suggests that Barbadian rum runners hijacked the ship, used it for a run, and then abandoned it. But then how did the rum runners get off the ship? And what happened to the crew? That was some questions that came to mind. Plus, this type of cargo ship was not fast enough to be like a rum runner ship. So if they were going to steal a ship to run booze, they would have picked a faster,
smaller
ship. Yes.
Sleeker, easier to maneuver.
Right.
And also, that's quite a far ways from Barbados. You know what I mean? If it was found like abandoned near Barbados, you could be like, okay, well, maybe these people got the rum runners got it and used it and then, you know, just trashed it or left it somewhere. But that's quite a ways from there. So if they were to have used this ship and scuttle the ship there off the coast of North Carolina, where did they go?
Exactly. Some thought the crew might have mutinied. Now, others thought maybe they all drowned trying to swim to shore. But this doesn't explain the severed cables and the missing anchors. And the ship hadn't begun sinking yet. So, it would have been easy for the sailors to remain on board until help arrived. So, some suggest that her crew fell victim to the mysterious Bermuda Triangle. But that doesn't explain why the red-headed Scandinavian gentleman was seen aboard the ship and others were seen milling around on the poop deck, right?
Right, and it's only a crew of 8, so if you see, you're seeing basically the crew there, or most of the crew there on the poop deck.
Everyone from the Coast Guard to the FBI tried to figure out the fate of the Carroll A. Deering. And to this day, the Carroll A. Deering is one of the most discussed and written about maritime mysteries of the 20th century.
Well, I must say, I guess given some of the accounts of what was overheard, the first mate was heard saying in various other places, it seems like some kind of altercation happened on the ship amongst the crew. I think that you could pretty well lean into that theory as being probable. Do you think so? It does seem that someone intentionally ruined the ship for lack of a better word. And, but at the same time, that doesn't really add up because
Well,
there
it's
was
just
what
what
was
would
to
be the
gain.
motive?
What did you gain?
Exactly.
Because typically the gain is for mutiny is we don't agree with this captain's doing. He's putting us in dangerous situations. So we're going to either kill him or subdue him and take the ship and go where we think we should go. So therefore you're going to leave the ship intact and make it and operational. So yeah, I mean, unless it was just pure rage, I want to kill everybody, So yeah.
But then there was no sign of like a murder having taken place on the ship. There were no signs of blood or
Right.
a struggle other than having the nautical charts and some of the paperwork scattered around in the captain's quarters. Everything else seemed to be in place.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't make sense. Even if the whole crew turned on the captain, 7 against 1, they could maybe take him, catch him by surprise, get him quickly. Therefore, there's no struggle. But then what happened to the rest of the crew? And if it's the one guy, the one first mate who kills the entire crew, then that makes it a lot less likely that there would be no signs of struggle. No guns discharged, no, cutlasses. In my head, I know it's like early 19 or turn of the century there, but in my head they have like full-blown pirate clothes on and, the cutlasses and stuff like that.
Well, yeah.
Cannonballs.
Makes sense.
Well,
It's very strange.
It is very strange.
And the fact that no one ever heard from the missing crew members again, I mean, not to say that they couldn't have, murdered the captain and were able to slip away on a different ship, something like that, but then they never appeared in their lives again. So the likelihood that like 9 people would be in on murdering the captain and then assuming new identities, that doesn't really make sense either.
No, and honestly, in the state the ship was in, how far is it really going to make it if you were to leave the ship, everyone leave the ship, and the captain's dead and the ship's just adrift? I know it could wash up there, but with its full sails out and everything, it seems like something that would catch other ships' eye and stuff like that, acting abnormally. So there's no other report of, hey, we saw this ship, it was, looked like it was out of control. None of those reports either. So it's almost like someone operated the ship up to the last minute because it seems like it didn't just wash up on that shoal or the diamond. What was it? The diamond
shoals.
Diamond shoals. It seemed like it was run that way intentionally, straight on.
And the steering cable's cut.
Right.
I mean, we're rendering the ship completely unusable. For what purpose?
It's very odd.
It is very odd.
It could have been the mermaids.
You think so?
You see how all this stuff connects together?
You think it could be the mermaids? Maybe it was aliens.
It's the mer people. Maybe it was Atlanteans.
I mean, it's very strange.
It is very strange. And I think the sea is a kind of mysterious and spooky to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Any stories about like a ghost ship or, anything like with the fog setting in and all that stuff, creepy lighthouses, everything about that entire area is creepy and spooky to me.
And then on top of it, you've got the crew's meal all laid out in the galley.
Yeah.
But no one's eaten.
That's weird as well.
I mean, none of it makes sense. Make it make sense, Dylan.
I can't. Well, I think people smarter than us have taken a look at it, hard look at it, and they haven't figured it out. So I think it's just going to remain a mystery.
One thing that I did discover in my research, Dylan, once they blasted the ship, of course, all the pieces of wood started floating ashore, and a lot of locals in that area took those wood pieces and built houses with
nice
pieces of the Carroll A Deering.
Okay. It was the beginnings of the reclaimed lumber industry.
I wonder if the ship builders or the person that owned the ship got any kind of insurance money out of it.
Oh, that's a good question.
So now here's my theory, right? And I don't know. I don't know about the insurance. I don't know if that was a thing back then.
I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, yeah.
The Titanic and all that. They got like a big payout, right? So imagine the shipbuilders. The ship's, it's ran its course, it's a wooden schooner. We're not doing that anymore. Now we've got these iron ships. They purposefully destroy the ship, run it aground for this insurance payout, and then they paid off the crew members to be quiet.
Wow.
And maybe got a big chunk of money out of it.
That explains everything.
I didn't look into this theory at all, but it just popped in my head.
Well, that explains where the crew went. There was another ship there, and that explains them kind of wanting, instead of just sinking it out to sea, they wanted it to be very public, for it to wash up in front of the public, so it can be in this weird situation set up to where nobody knows what happened. And at the very least, they're going to think is, insurance fraud. So, that's pretty hot take.
I mean, this could be the case, and I'm just speculating, but, these sailors, did they have families, wives, children? Maybe, maybe not, because that is a fairly tough job. And I think a lot of those men who chose that seafaring lifestyle were not often hitched.
Right. They would just
were single men.
They would just visit people in the ports that they landed at.
Right. So maybe
hang out
if
and
they
drink.
were unmarried, that kind of thing, maybe it was easy to just set up a new life someplace with your insurance payout.
Okay.
But I mean, that's just my brain working here. It doesn't make sense for me to think that would happen, because I think people can't keep their mouths shut even if you pay them.
Right.
So the likelihood that the crew members would have just went on and never squeaked the truth out doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and the fact that the ship may have been more valuable if it was just decommissioned and parted out and pieced out, especially given some of the luxurious, some of the more exotic woods it was made out of.
And some of the fineries.
And things like that. It may have been more valuable than insurance money if it was decommissioned and, taken apart. So, but that's a pretty good theory. I like the way your brain works.
Do you?
Yeah. So if anyone ever finds my little Honda car abandoned on the Diamond Shoal off the coast of North Carolina, you'll know what happened to me.
We'll know.
They'll know.
I won't know.
You'll know, but you'll never say.
No.
I've been run aground.
Thanks for telling everybody our plans.
Yeah. I did ask you the other day because I saw an article about someone who had actually done. It was a police chief, I want to say, was found living. He was assumed dead, and he had actually faked his own death to escape some charges of corruption or something to that degree. And I was just like, I asked you, how hard do you think it would be to fake your own death? Do you think it would be that tough?
Yes and no.
In our area, I know exactly what I would do. I was hiking way out this trail. We was backpacking, and then, boom, we lost sight of each other, blah, blah, blah. The interdimensional Sasquatch got me, and I never saw him again. You just give him that whole 411, National Park 411 thing.
The missing 411.
Missing 411, yeah. We were walking on the trail. He was up ahead of me because he's in really great shape, and he can move fast, which would be a lie.
Well, no, you move faster than me, but that's just because your legs are longer than mine.
Yeah.
For every step you take, I have to take 4 because I have
You're just little.
Tiny legs.
Well, yeah, I always tell you it's like the little chihuahua. Their little feet's going they're taking 100 steps to your one because they're just so little. So, yeah, I'm up ahead of you, just kicking this trail's ass. We go around a bend. Boom. You come around, I'm gone. Boom. And it's not that crazy because there's countless other stories just like that.
Now you've given up you've told them everything now, Dylan.
Yeah, and you'll just be like, I don't know where his big-headed ass went. And then after a certain time, you can have me declared dead. We'll cash in on our life insurance, my life insurance, and we'll live it up.
Don't we have to wait 7 years to declare you dead, though?
I think that depends by state, and it also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a judge can push that forward quicker as far as the declaration of death.
But you're worth more to me alive than dead.
Well, I'm just, if I have to, if I have to escape corruption charges, there's no telling what I'm capable of.
Yeah, but then how are you going to secure a new identity?
Well,
in this day and age.
Okay, so then I go to the southern border, right?
Okay.
And I cross back into America, claim to be an illegal alien, right? Or I'm sorry, an undocumented friend. And yeah, and then I start that way. You know, they'll just set me up somewhere in South LA, and I'll just be like, "What are you looking at, fool?" And I got a new identity. And I could be like
You
named
don't speak Spanish.
T-Bone
I
or
don't feel
something.
like that's going to work at all for you, Dylan.
Okay, maybe I have to rethink where.
And you're very white.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have to claim I just claim I'm not American, right?
You come from France?
I tell them I'm from the.
Oh my God. Okay, perfect. Here's what we do. We get you a cone head.
Yeah, I'm Ukrainian, bro. We got world events happening.
You don't speak Ukrainian
But they don't either. And I'll just bullshit them. I'll be like, oh, blah, da, da. I say da a lot because that's like yes in Russian. I'll be like, I'm from the part that was
I'm
Russian.
not quite sure how, but I feel like there's something in this that's going to get us canceled. So maybe you should just stop.
Okay. Well.
Okay, my idea is better. Here's what we do. We get you a cone head costume.
Okay.
Okay? Cone head, you get you a cloak, and you come to America and you say, I come from France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just act like I'm a conehead.
I come from France.
But I don't have their powers.
But you just say I come from France. Right?
Okay.
And you've got the cone head. So
That's totally
they're just gonna automatically know that you're not of this world.
Okay. And they'll just set me up.
You're out of sight.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
how we're gonna do it.
Let's do it.
I'll abandon my other plan. It didn't sound feasible.
But then what about the podcast?
Well, we can still podcast.
We'll still have batshit crazy. We'll just pretend you're not Dylan.
Yeah.
You're Conehead Bob.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be like, I enjoy this story, Heather.
Yes. Yeah,
Just
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah, like Dan Aykroyd.
Okay. So I think this can work. But everyone who hears this podcast,
What do you think happened?
we're going to neutralize
to
them.
the captain and crew. Do you have any thoughts about this, Dylan, to bring it back?
Yeah, I think it was, if not a full-on mutiny, I think one or more of the crew members harmed the rest of the crew. And they were like, weighted down, thrown overboard. And they somehow got the jump on them, which, kept it from being a obvious struggle. Or they had plenty of time to clean up. If you're out to sea for weeks, you got plenty of time to clean, tidy up. It certainly sounded like there was evidence that more than one person was staying in the captain's quarters, which I would imagine would be kind of something someone would do. Not only are they most comfortable quarters, I'm sure, it would be kind of the principle. Like we kicked his ass and now we're going to sleep in his quarters.
Why'd they leave behind their boots?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe they had to, maybe they had new boots. Maybe they had some
They were like,
ostrich.
these are the boots of my old life.
Yes.
I'm assuming a new identity, so I'm getting some new boots.
I'm going with new boots.
And then he's just like, new boot goofing.
Ostrich,
Yeah.
3 payments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dylan, this has been the story of the Carroll A. Deering, an enduring mystery.
The ghost ship.
A ghost ship, one of many ghost ships.
Yeah, I'm telling you, sea's scary.
We may cover more ghost ships as, time marches on, because there are quite a few stories that are very strange and unusual.
So if people love them some batshit crazy, where can they interact with us, Heather?
We have an Instagram page. Look for Batshit Pod on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say, Dylan.
That's it. That's all they need to know.
Okay. You can also email batshitpod@gmail.com if you have any questions, thoughts, suggestions, things you want to hear on the podcast.
Yes, and thank you for listening.
We'll be back next Thursday with something else for you that's peculiar.
I can't wait.